Knives, but there is also one knife used in the bakery applications but initially used by the painters. Yes, I am speaking about the palette knife. Flexible, strong, non-sharpened and also used for the application and mixing in the bakery. We have called a palette knife from KOHE, where we are going to showcase using it for various pastry and bakery applications. Going ahead, see a series of using it in a proper way in a bakery and pastry applications. So here the first step, mix with the palette knife the cream and add the chocolate sauce to it. Mixing it well so that the whole marination is done properly. The next step is slicing the sponge of chocolate with the bread knife and cutting into two different variations. The next step will be application of the sugar syrup and adding the chocolate ganache in between. We will be using the palette knife to layer the chocolate ganache properly to the whole sponge. Top up the sponge after the chocolate ganache is added and we'll be applying the buttercream which we have mixed at the initial steps, and the palette knife will be used to layer it properly. Using the caramel sauce on top of it, we will layer again the step 2 of the cake and allow the icing to cover up all together on the all sides of the cake. Top up the cake with the chocolate as well as the vanilla cream mixed together at the initial steps, and now is the final icing. Using the palette knife on the sides, we'll be layering it up totally on the cake. Here comes the next usage of making the garnishes over the chocolate and the palette knife. Using a plain butter paper, we will be layering it up with first white chocolate and then layer it up with the dark chocolate on top of it. Layer it nicely with the palette knife, cutting the sides of the chocolate and giving it to the various sizes. Once it is dried, we will roll the butter paper and keep it for 15 minutes to dry the chocolate properly and get into shape. Here is the ganache and the cranberry. Dropping the cranberry sauce on top of the iced cake, we will be using the palette knife to apply the sauce thoroughly on the cake. Now the next step of using the palette knife with some icing cream, we will be filling the butter paper and doing the final topping on the cake utilizing the piping bag. The never-ending usage of palette knife still not finished. Here, after pouring the cream, we will be layering with our palette knife on the icing and giving it a nice decoration with the roundels and diagonal shapes to the cake. Time for the final presentations on the cake made with our couple of minutes back chocolate garnishes. We are going to layer on top of it all the roundels and the side angles on the side of the cake. One chef tool and multiple presentation. What can be the best deal of using the KOHE palette knives for the presentation and the icing all in one with the KOHE range of knives. Looking forward for more tutorials and the series of learning and gaining more knowledge with the KOHE.